This morning, I'd like to start by inviting you to join me in a little stroll down memory lane. If you'll join me and Sherman and Mr. Peabody in the Wayback Machine here, we're going to be going back in time, back to the BC era, before COVID, back to what one of my friends calls the before times in all capital letters. In fact, I want to call us back even farther than that time just before COVID, all the way back to the 20-teens. Do you remember the 20-teens? It feels like decades ago we were in the 20-teens, right? It was such a simpler age and so much more carefree, and we had no idea, did we? Let's go back to the year 2015, right at the beginning of the year. In the first few months of 2015, what dominated the public debate, what sucked up all the air in the room was not a hot-button, wildly contentious issue such as abortion or Black Lives Matter or Donald Trump or Hunter Biden's laptop or immigration or gender or sexuality or the war in Ukraine, although it must be said that it's not like those issues or concerns or problems weren't there simmering. We were just busy arguing about something completely different. Do you remember what it was? The hottest topic of conversation back in early 2015 was nothing political at all, although anything can get political at some point. The biggest point of contention, the thing about which seemingly everyone had an opinion and almost any opinion at all was bound to start an argument, was the dress. They call it the dress that broke the internet. In early 2015, Cecilia Bleasdale was shopping for a dress for her daughter's wedding. After trying on several options and taking pictures to text to her daughter along the way, Cecilia messaged her daughter and simply said that she had bought the third dress that she sent a picture of. "Oh," her daughter texted back, "the white and gold one?" "No," Cecilia said, "the blue and black one." "Mom," the daughter wrote back, "if you think that dress is blue and black, you should go see a doctor and have your eyes checked." Cecilia handed the photograph on her phone to her partner, Paul Jenks, who was with Cecilia when she was trying on the dresses, who, in point of fact, is holding up the dress in this picture that you're looking at here, who paid for the dress with his own money. And he said, looking at the picture, "No, that dress is white and gold." And after further back and forth, it was on. The daughter or one of her friends posted the picture on social media asking the seemingly innocent question, is this dress white and gold or is this dress blue and black? And then BuzzFeed got a hold of it, and then Ellen DeGeneres got a hold of it, and then celebrities were arguing about whether the dress was white and gold or blue and black. And at its peak, the original online image was being viewed 14,000 times per second. Social media platforms like Twitter and Tumblr were crashing as everybody was logging in and looking at the dress and chiming in, casting their votes in the ongoing debate whether the dress is white and gold or blue and black. Hashtag the dress was everywhere. Although it is assumed that there's something about the lighting in this image that created some kind of visual anomaly where some people saw white and gold while others looking at the exact same image saw blue and black, sort of like an optical illusion. It may not be quite that simple. Neuroscientists and psychologists and vision science experts studied this phenomenon, and they could not agree on what was causing different people to see different colors in the exact same image. But they clearly did agree that we clearly do not fully understand how vision and sight and seeing work at all for all of us. Human bodies, it turns out, are not machines coldly and analytically processing inputs and data like a supercomputer. We are, as our scriptures teaches us, fearfully and wonderfully made. And no two of us are exactly alike. Is it possible then that no two of us see exactly alike? We know, for example, when it comes to sight and seeing, that some people are colorblind. We accept this truth, that some people do not see color the way other people see color. We also know, for example, that some people experience what's called synesthesia, that they see colors in response to other senses, especially sound. And visual artists like David Hockney, and we think maybe Vincent van Gogh, to name just a couple, can and have clearly used color and images in ways that delight us and boggle our imagination because they simply see things differently than the rest of us. Apparently, the composers Franz Liszt and Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov who were both experiencing synesthesia, once got into a particular argument about the colors of different musical keys. Some of us have the gift of seeing colors, seeing things that the rest of us simply don't. In his 2021 book, The Body, A Guide for Occupants, Bill Bryson points out that our eyes send 100 billion signals to our brains every second. But that's only 10% of what we're actually seeing. Our brain fills in the rest, whether that's filling in details based on previous experience or interpreting facial expressions or analyzing and anticipating risks or potential danger or just simply making things up. Have you ever seen something and thought, wait a minute, did I really just see that? The biggest part of seeing, Bryson says, is not receiving the visual data or input, but making sense of them. When it comes to optical illusions or visual anomalies like the dress, it is 100% fair to ask the question, do my eyes deceive me? Do my eyes deceive me? And this image here is the famous duck-rabbit optical illusion. Some of you might see a duck and some of you might see a rabbit, or you might be able to go back and forth. Do your eyes deceive you? Well, possibly, maybe, although in fairness to your eyes, you might want to blame the mystery that is your brain in telling you what it is that you're seeing. Sort of makes you wonder if the old adage, seeing is believing, is really all it's cracked up to be. If we don't all see what we think we see, or what we think we see isn't what we're actually seeing, or what we think we're seeing is not what somebody else is seeing, let alone what anybody else is seeing anywhere. In the Gospel according to John, the theme of sight and seeing rightly, especially seeing Jesus for who he really is, occurs again and again and again. And of course, it occurs in our reading for this morning in the story of Thomas the Apostle about his unwillingness, his reluctance to believe what the other disciples were saying, were telling about him, that Jesus was raised from the dead and that they had seen him. Thomas did not believe this good news because he himself did not experience, he himself did not see with his own two eyes the risen Jesus. Sight and seeing Jesus rightly and clearly as it happens throughout John's gospel sits at the heart, at the core of this story too, doesn't it? But notice how John tells this story. He wrinkles this story just a little bit. Notice what John, of all people, of all authors, does with this recurring theme of sight and seeing in this particular text, because it is different. Jesus says to Thomas, when Thomas finally does see the risen Christ standing before him, Jesus says to the formerly doubting Thomas, "Have you believed because you have seen me?" Was it enough, Thomas, to see me? Is it enough? Can it be enough? And then Jesus goes on, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe. John records for us these words coming from the mouth of Jesus. John, the gospel writer. The gospel writer who doesn't call Jesus' miracles miracles, but calls them signs, because we're supposed to see what Jesus is pointing at with these miracles. The gospel writer who is the only one to tell the long, long story of the healing of the man born blind in John chapter 9. The gospel writer whose gospel starts out with this soaring poetry about light and darkness, who says of Jesus, "The word of God became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory." The one whose powerful prologue ends, "No one has ever seen God. It is only the Son, Jesus, who has made him known." John, the gospel writer, has this Jesus raised from the dead, appearing to his followers and his friends, saying, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." John, of all people, for all of his carefully chosen and carefully woven narratives around sight and sign and seeing, has come to the apparent conclusion here on the other side of the empty tomb that seeing might not be either a necessary or a sufficient condition for our faith. It might take more than seeing to fully understand what God is up to. Seeing alone might not be believing. It might take something else besides merely looking at. And we see that for ourselves. We hear that for ourselves in this story. Thomas says, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands and put my finger in the mark of the nails and my hand in his side, I will not believe. Thomas himself acknowledges a need to not only see Jesus, but to feel Jesus, to make contact with Jesus, to touch Jesus. And then when Jesus shows up, what does he say to doubting Thomas? He says, put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe. Make contact with me, Thomas. Touch me here. Look. Put your hand here. Feel me. Touch. See, touch. Jesus says, do not doubt, but believe. Jesus insists that Thomas not just look at him, not just see him, not just behold him with his eyes, but importantly to touch, to lay hands on, to make contact with, to feel for himself. And there's something about the pattern here, the order of Jesus' invitation to Thomas that really strikes me. Jesus says, put your finger here. Touch first. Then look, and then touch again, and know. Jesus knows that seeing is not believing, that your eyes can deceive you, that merely looking at, glancing at is not going to be enough. Thousands of years before the great dress debate of 2015, Jesus understood that what you see, what I see, what others see, what Thomas sees might not be enough for any of us to really understand, to really experience, to really comprehend the fullness of what God is up to. It takes something more. I wonder, though, how many of us ever look past the surface? What we see, we think we need to see, and we're done, either for the good or for the not so good. We take a quick look at something and we confirm our faith, or we look away and say, yeah, nothing to see here. And it never occurs for us to reach out and touch, to make actual contact with. It never occurs to us to look deeper, to move past the image, the illusion, the ideal, and get really real with the tangible. And I wonder how many of us are quick to form our opinions based on what we see or what we think we see, so confident that we are right and we ourselves do not know. We ourselves have not yet reached out and grasped at what might be real about faith or God or Jesus. You see, the dress really was blue and black, not white and gold. I mean, who wears a white and gold dress to your daughter's wedding? Come on. It's blue and black. And the woman who knew for sure is the one who put it on, who wore it herself, who didn't just look at it on her phone or a screen or even in the shop, who literally had it come in contact with her body. She knew for sure it was blue and black because she tried it on. How many of us are not trying it on, but we're willing to make an opinion about what we think we see? And how many of us never consider there's a whole world out there that needs something more than the superficial, something more than the image for them to believe. It's not enough for us to proclaim that we follow Jesus, that we ourselves have seen him, that of course they are welcome here, that we want them to be here. They need something more, and we just don't bother offering them the something more that they really need, the something tangible, the something real that they can put their hands around, that they can actually come in contact with instead of just an idea or an image or a visual of what they think church might be or what God might be. Even John, the gospel writer, who makes such rich use of sight and sign and seeing, even John knows and tells us in this story that there's got to be more. There's got to be something beyond just a glance or a glimpse for you, for me, for any of us, for all of us. Is there more for you than what you've seen? Have you reached out and touched, grasped? Is there more for the world out there than what they think they've seen? Something for them to reach out to and touch. Show me. Show them.